But yeah, we don't just get descriptions of Dudley. We also get, Harry and what he's dealing with. And like the most stark thing is that he's living under the cupboard. Like he's in a closet.
Lives in a
like
cupboard.
that's
Stairs,
he's actually living. Like that's how terrible that they treat him.
It's the next kind of iconic moment we see in the book with the the cupboard under the stairs. Everyone knows that phrase as being from Harry Potter. Which is interesting because it's such a small part of the story. It only happens at this sort of stage, these first 3 chapters, and then it's gone.
It's a very small interest, and he gets a room. Yeah. But it's like, well,
I almost forgot that. I almost thought that it was the second book that the bedroom came into play.
That's because I believe the movie has him in there, and you don't ever see the scene of him getting the room, which I think was a deleted scene, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, because the first book is the one.
The second movie just kind of starts with him being in the room. Yeah.
It's also it's funny how resigned he is to that's his cupboard. Like when they start sending the letters from no one, he goes, "That's mine. It has my cupboard on it."
Yeah.
It's like he owns it. Like that's my cupboard. It's like no, he doesn't even call it my room. He calls it my cupboard. It's just so funny.
Yeah, it's kind of quaint in how. Because at this part of the story, his kind of timidity is blended with his consternation of what's happening to him. So it's like every now and then you'll get like, okay, fine, you're plodding along, head down, this is annoying, and then he'll go, no, it's mine, stop, no, do this, or he'll make a jab at Dudley or something. You see the early fire of who Harry, the Gryffindor in him, who Harry is going to be, but it's still kind of under that blanket of just my life is I just coasting on neutral because everything is horrible.
And his wit too. You also see a little bit of his wit coming because he has a little bit of a mouth to him for sure.
Which there's a specific line we'll cover in a second that I'm particularly a fan of, or in the next chapter actually. Sorry,
I think it's next chapter.
But yeah, the description of him in this cupboard, not just the cupboard itself, but his kind of introduction is another example of how she just perfectly encapsulates the character's visuals in the very first paragraph they appear. That whole hair that sticks up all over the place, which again tied into the story itself, the magical side. There's always a contextual reason for explaining what she is, even when it's kind of just the reader's perspective, because Harry's obviously not looking at himself here.
So he just trudges to the kitchen, and we get our introduction to the family after all this time has passed. And needless to say, things haven't gotten much better over the past decade.
Yeah.
No.
To say the least, Dudley is a pig. That's just the only word for him, and as a reason he gets a tail later.
Yeah.
So it's like he's complaining because he's got one less present than last year, and
two less.
Like,
it was one less, but he thought it was 2 less.
It was one less.
Was it 1 or 2?
Yeah.
Oh no, 2 more. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. Because after they realized he was panicking, they're like, "But listen, Popkin, we're going to go to the store and get you 2 new presents or whatever." That's kind of what happened.
But I love what immediately follows that is like he can't figure out how many that would come to.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
30. It's like 39, honey. And it's like, oh my god, this kid's a freaking idiot.
Everyone hated Dudley in this scene. It's just a fact.
Yeah. It's even turned into a meme. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the meme of Dudley and the present thing, but someone did it for Game of Thrones where like we were only going to get 6 episodes for like the second to last season. And he was like, but last year I got 10 episodes of Game of Thrones. And it's like completely a thing now, which is awesome.
That's not the meme that comes to mind when I think the Dursleys at the start of this book. We'll get to that next chapter. But yeah, I hadn't heard that one before. I'm glad they've made that a thing. Harry Potter memes should be more prevalent.
And then back with the name drops too, we get like Mrs. Fig is already like mentioned in chapter 2. Who you ended up realizing is a squib, which is a whole thing, which I believe is in
Book 5.
Chamber Secrets is a whole
Chamber of
subplot.
Secrets is the
it's a subplot
that's when
for
it
it.
comes out.
Yeah. Squib in general, Chamber of Secrets, and then Book 5 is her specifically being one. That's when she resurfaces. I like because obviously what we know happens with the snake later. I like that this pairs a glimpse of more natural, believable empathy for Harry. Obviously, he's relating to the snake later on. We'll get to that in a bit. But in this moment, he says specifically about the broken leg for Mrs. Fig. He's like, I suppose I should feel sorry about Mrs. Fig, and I do. But at the same time, I don't know how to go. And
he doesn't have to go.
It's another year before I have to go and look at all these cat pictures.
There's nothing worse than having to go to an old lady's house for an extended period of time and just stay there
as a kid,
especially
when
lady.
You're a kid.
Yeah.
And it's nice that he acknowledges that I should feel bad and I'm sorry, but it adds a believable tinge to his nature, because if we just got empathetic, kind, always looking out for other people,
like come on,
be a bit more natural. It's the very
he's
first,
still a kid.
very first scene where we see his empathy come forward is already predicated by this, which I like. Small moment, but it's worth noting.
And then also Marge gets her name drop as well.
Yes,
yes.
Who comes in
Lovely
in a
Aunt
big
Marge.
way. Yeah.
A big way, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, like in context, given what we know about her when we do meet her, I'm surprised that he even floated that out as a possibility. Like we could phone Marge, you know. She hates the boy at Vernon.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's a little bit of an understatement. That, you know. I don't know if hate quite sums it up.
And it's crazy because the whole thing that they're doing right now is trying to figure out if they'll take him to the zoo with them. And they even float the idea that, like, oh, we can bring him and just leave him in the car. And it's like, leave him in the car like a baby that you're going to, like, suffocate to death, or like a dog or something like that. Like, that's how low. Like,
crack the windows. You crack the windows,
but-
everything will be fine.
Beyond even that,
leave some chips.
it's the fact that we're not leaving him in the car. It's brand new. I don't want him damaging it.
Yeah, and then that.
It's like, Jesus.
Which presumably
And the
is
reason
the
why they don't
reason
want to
why
leave him
he...
at the home, too.
Yeah,
They
they
don't
won't
want
leave him at the
home.
house. Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
blow up. Yeah.
Yeah. But as well, because we've kind of obviously it's been addressed, it's just not dived into it yet. They're aware of the magical problem, so they're thinking through the fear lens of. I mean, they're horrible people as well, obviously, but the primary paranoia and fear of that level is the fact that they don't want him breaking anything or doing anything weird or him being out of their control. You know, they want to keep that side of life separate from themselves. Because they know about magic.
Yeah.
Which we do know, but just never really focused on.
They suck.
That as
suck
well.
ass.
That is the
And they
reason,
also
but
just suck.
it is that's why they're so vehement about leaving him alone at the house, for example. You know, I think that's probably the focus on there. It helps kind of give a lens of clarity to this insanity with these guys.
It's just so funny that later on they leave him there all the time after he does no magic, which, you know, whatever. You have to leave the house eventually. I get that. But yeah, it's also funny how, like, so are we at the spot where, like, they're going to the zoo then? Is that where we are?
Yeah.
Well, right before that point, I loved how, again, her perfect description where she describes Piers Dudley's friend as, like, looking like a rat. And then you immediately get, okay, I know what that kid looks like. I know, what his body structure looks like. And then saying, you know, he's the kind of kid who pins people's arms behind their back while someone else punches. Like, you get immediately within 2 sentences, like, what that kid is and what he looks like.
Yeah.
And very, very good.
He's also
A goon.
He's another... Yeah, a goon. Yeah. He's also another alliterative name, I think. He's like Piers Polkins or something like that. Like, which just kind of sounds like a shithead, by the way. Like, that just sounds like a shithead kid to me.
This is the kid that Peeves was before he died.
Yes,
But-
he's the piece.
Probably, yeah.
But
His name was Piers Polkins. He's his uncle. Like, I'm just making that. I made that up. But that's some fan
that would
fiction
be
for you.
funny.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We get to the zoo as Matt was saying.
Yeah, we get to the zoo. They get the initial things like, no, you any funny business. It's like, and you'll be in that cupboard for the rest of your life. I like that the.
Oh yeah, and we get the description of the funny things that he's done in the past, which for us we learn kind of bit. Oh yeah, he's magical. Like he's gonna do some things, but then for him, it's just like I just don't know what's wrong with me. Like I don't know why I'm so weird.
To the point where he's almost, almost ridiculous
and regrowing his hair.
Yeah, the only one that is like crazy is like the idea that he thought like the wind caught him and blew him on top of a building like that.
Yeah.
Like, Harry,
that's
like
to me that's the most believable of the three.
What?
Because he
crazy?
thought his hair could grow back overnight, and then also he thought that, imagine the visual of this fully like too small jumper just shrinking to a glove, a mitt in his hand in front of him. And then she goes, "Oh, it must have shrunk in the wash." That is a bit unbelievable.
Well, for a kid, I think a kid would believe. There was some.
We don't know how
kid.
old he was when that happened, so
he literally was under the impression that he was jumping to get away from bullies and floated on top of a building. That to me is the most unbelievable. Like
I'm imagining it more like just where he is on the bin. It's closer to the roof, I suppose. But yeah, to me it felt the most believable of all of them. But it's interesting because it's apparition. The first time he apparated was when he was that young.
Do you think it's apparition? I thought he actually.
I
did
thought
float,
it was.
like
I thought it was just
like
levitation.
floating.
Yeah,
or something like that.
I thought it's the way because the way it described him saying that he just 1 minute he was on the floor, the next minute he was on the roof.
Could be
with no
apparition.
idea how he got there. I mean, if he levitated, he would presumably have been aware of the fact that he was floating up.
But apparition's kind of like a really visceral experience. You think that would leave more of an impression?
I guess.
Yeah, it has a feeling.
If it's like
the first time we see him do it like proper, he almost vomits.
Yeah, with the keyhole thing. I suppose it's just a case of
all to do is just the way he justified it. Like if I thought the wind caught me and threw me up there, I thought it was levitation. That's just how I read it.
Yeah.
But whatever.
post what you think in the comments below, guys, on that one. But I think it's probably more like just a case of she didn't really have sketched down how she wanted Apparition to work at this point. Although she did have the whole spin on the spot thing. But anyway, yeah. We get
anyway,
those are the examples. Those are the examples of the magic we get from him early on, which I think are nice. You know, hairy growth, shrinking charm, and possible apparition levitation.
I also like that. Just how extreme this is. Like when he tells them about his dream, like with the motorcycle flying in the air.
Oh yeah,
and
he almost crashed the goddamn car. like because it's like what? No imagination is allowed. I mean, like, are you serious? What kind of?
And he's like, he turns around like motorcycles don't fly, and Harry just kind of like, I know they don't.
He's like, I know that. Jeez, relax.
You're that
subtle.
You almost crashed your car over that. It's just some kid going, I had a stupid dream, and this is what it was.
Yeah, but that's why I brought up the whole paranoia thing about the magic thing, because that to me is what makes that more believable, because that's complete insanity without the acknowledgement of the fact that he does know this is possible and he doesn't want it to happen. So that paranoid kind of craziness attached to it is fine. But Harry doesn't know that, so he's like, I know they don't. It's just, it was a dream. A rational person would just play it off as such, but Vernon is not a rational person.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's not a rational person at
which
all.
Is why it's believable. I just love the visual there. But yeah, they get to the start of the zoo experience. Harry has quite a nice day for once. He makes a point of saying, he got he got a day out. He steered clear of.
He got some ice cream. Yeah,
little lemon pop.
Yep.
Yeah, he got the table, which is funny. Like just normal, decent people is the only reason he got that. It's like, we're here for the ice cream shop. What do you want? Well, we can't say that we're not getting him anything. That makes us look like assholes, even though we are.
It's always about appearance with them. Whenever they give any headway, even the bedroom is purely because of appearances in chapter 3. If that comes in, then that's when he gets his way. And he even plays around that sometimes. He'll go, oh, but what about this? He actually learns to manipulate that later on.
And at one point, they even give him like not his own Knickerbocker glory. What is that?
Knickerbocker glory. It's a layered dessert.
They don't even give him his own. They allow him to finish Dudley's first one because it was like not enough chocolate sauce or something on it.
It was just not big enough. The entire thing was too small, which is just crazy. Yeah. He's got halfway down and then he decides, nope, this isn't big enough. I want another one. Gets another one and then doesn't eat the rest of what he had. That's just it's so mind-bogglingly spoilt. It doesn't compute.
Yeah, ridiculous.
And yet that these people exist. That this family exists all over the place, and it's like, oh god, it makes it all the more infuriating.
Yeah,
but Harry got a nice experience at the zoo out of it, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. And then that's when he happens upon it's Dudley who happens upon the boa constrictor, and they're like, why doesn't he not move? And he's like tapping on the glass like the asshole that they are, or he is, and it's like, come on, leave the thing alone. And then of course he shovels off because he's bored of the thing that's supposed to entertain him when zoos aren't really it depends on how you feel about zoos, because some zoos can be that way.
It's a bit of a
where it's just
gray
entertainment, and then some of them are about rehabilitation.
Case by case.
Yeah, it's case by case, and it's kind of complicated. But
this is an interesting bit of foreshadowing, but it's done in a way that you would never catch it, because who's to say that it's not normal for wizard people to be able to talk to animals?
Right.
As Harry says, his own perspective. That's what he's always thought.
Too. He's like, well, I thought it was kind of normal, and they're like, nah,
it's just magic. It's just magic. He's like, not that branch of magic. That's dark magic.
The one thing that I think is a little strange, and it's only because I don't think she establishes this anywhere, is the clear implication to me is that Snake can read English, because it points to
It's very smart.
Like the sign, Yeah,
it points to the sign. So I go, are animals all magical, or is it that is a magic snake, or are they all sentient? Yeah. So I mean, and it's only because she doesn't say anywhere in the other books to me that it's a little weird, but like it stood out for commentary, I thought.
He also
even later down the line.
Oh god, it was an animagus that had been stuck in his form.
He was
an animorph stuck in his body.
He was like just some Argentinian wizard that got stuck there. It's like, what do I do now?
Unfortunately, not though, because he was not unfortunately he was trapped, but unfortunately that's not the case of the story because obviously he was born into captivity. But yeah, he does say amigo as well as like thanks amigo, and then just floats.
He's a bilingual snake.
Off.
He's a bilingual snake as well. Yeah, very interesting.
But the thing that stood out to me, and it happened in the film as well, obviously because it's showing you him speaking in English because that's his perspective. But to everyone else, is Harry just violently hissing at this glass, loud enough for it to get through the glass, and he's going.
It has to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone's noticing because they're too busy like seeing these kids stuck in the boa constrictor exhibit, so they're not really listening to this kid hissing.
Yeah, and the kid
you just
obviously
imagine some family just walking by though, just like what the hell?
Yeah, this is a troubled child. But the kid obviously says, Harry was talking to the snake as well, so he obviously heard that.
That's true. He might have heard it. Yeah.
That must have been slightly off-putting.
I guess, yeah, it makes sense that he would kind of tattle on him if that was the case, because that is weird,
But yeah, Vanishing is the next spell, obviously, we see from him. Uncontrolled. I like as well that it was a reaction to Dudley just punching him to the floor. It's like, he's such a prat. And it's just Harry's kind of explosive, uncontrolled magic that just happens as a result. I like that it wasn't, anything more than that, because I like the idea of the kids having such uncontrolled bursts, and that being how they're kind of introduced to the world, if they're Muggle-born or in any case.
Right. And why they need to go to Hogwarts to contain and control it.
Yeah, that's the big one.
It's very dangerous to just have those people out and about.
Absolutely. Well, more specifically because of the whole secret thing. They can't be seen.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big one. But yeah, Snake escapes. Says thanks, amigo, and thinks it's getting off to the place.
Yeah.
I don't think he is.
I wonder if she ever got any fan mail or anti-fan mail you racist, you assume all snakes from South America speak Spanish or whatever. I just wonder.
Because Brazil is actually funny because Brazil is actually they speak Portuguese, not Spanish. Yeah. So Amigo's kind of no, that's not right.
Yeah, it was the 90s or even earlier than that actually. But there's just the fact that he thinks he's going to get that. I don't think that snake escaped somehow. I mean, it's got a long way to go. Slithering through the streets of Britain is probably not the safest way for it to escape.
Maybe they should have had that in the epilogue of the 7th book. We cut to a snake just slithering through Brazil. I'm here.
There was actually I want to say that somebody they had put out some sort of theory that Rowling actually debunked, where they were trying to make that snake out as Nagini.
Yeah.
No.
Which would have been. Can you imagine? No. The idea of Nagini saying amigo is just off to me.
Oh, no, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, it's not that snake, fortunately. But I can understand why people would be interested in making that happen.
Funny how people have to make connections for every little thing ever in their favorite fictional worlds.
Indeed.
I know. How about that? We wouldn't know any franchises like that now, would we?
No.
When we returned back home, I think you guys had a note for the final paragraphs and kind of its weird transition.
Yeah. He gets
a little awkward.
He gets closed up in the cupboard again for long. We'll find out in the next chapter. It's the longest period of punishment he's had there. The last page, it's not bad, but because it's rolling, it stands out as almost a jarring kind of change in tone, because not tone in execution, because she goes from talking about the flashback in the car, which is supposed to be talk about actually the whole thing that Harry can, if he strains his mind, remember flashes of green and the pain in his scar, from what he perceives as it's supposed to be the car crash, supposedly. But it goes from describing that to then talking about strange people he meets in the street and how he's talking about those and how he's met them, and some people shake his hand and maybe he thinks they know him and he hopes, and then it cuts to and he has no one at school because Dudley scares them away, and the whole chapter ends on talking about they're too afraid of Dudley's gang, and it's it jumps between those three very almost significant points as almost an afterthought, and it's a very clunky end to a chapter for someone like Rowling.
It's a little too many ideas in one paragraph. All of that's in one paragraph, what you just said.
Yeah.
And it feels like she didn't quite know where she was going with it, so she just ended it. It just seems a little stark for her, like you said.
Yeah, and again, it's not by any means terrible. It's just because it's Rowling, because as we say, everything just flows so perfectly usually for her. It's a case of
that's
when
what
it doesn't, it stands out.
It's normally why these books are so readable. The chapters, they give you a strong read. Okay, I can't wait to read the next one.
It's this was just okay. Break.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel like it flows right into the next one. It's okay, I read my chapter for this evening, done with my homework. that's what.
Or
that
even
one
like
feels
this
to
didn't
me.
really need to be a chapter, but it could have just been like a scene break for the next bit because it didn't feel like it was like a chapter end. It was more like just a scene in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's about it with that
Yeah,
chapter,
yeah,
right?
literally
Yeah,
the end of
it
the
just
chapter.
sums everything up, Yeah.
But yeah, these have been our thoughts on The Vanishing Glass, guys. Chapter 2 of Book 1. Let us know what you think in the comments below, covering anything that we haven't spoken about or wanting to cover in more depth something that we have. I'm Retty 4, and I still don't have an outro.
Great Jedi 91. Take care, guys.
Evanova 95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Antoine Bandelet, mischief managed.
Goodbye.